Today we're here to find out which Jones is better, the short wheelbase or the long wheelbase. I'm here with my wife and mountain bike coach and reviewer, Dusty Betty. This is your first time really riding the Jones.
Yeah.
We're just gonna swap bikes back and forth on the trail and talk about what we're feeling. Now, this is the third video in my series talking about the Jones bikes, and I don't have time to go into all the details. You should go watch those other videos to get all the details, but here's a quick rundown. The purple one is the Jones long wheelbase. It has 29 by 3.25 tires, and the wheels get pushed out a little bit more. The gray one is a short wheelbase, and it has 27.5 by 3.25 tires. And it also has a more compact wheelbase. However, the fit is exactly the same between them. I'm 5'6", my wife is 5'4", and we are on size small bikes today. And then one other difference is we've got a dropper on the long wheelbase. So we're gonna try to erase that from the equation and not make one a favorite over the other because of the dropper. What better way to start than a wheelie test? Oh, hang on. Oh. These bikes take a little getting used to. They don't ride like anything else. Okay, there we go. There's the balance point. Super comfy once you're going. The chainstays are longer than any other bike I've ever tried, so the balance point's a little different, but once you get it, you get it. Now, these don't come with quick release seat post clamps, which normally I'd recommend, but for some reason, I feel like the Jones require extra strong clamping force. They don't clamp quite as well as some of the other bikes, and you really feel that on a wheelie. Oh, my seat's too loose. You really feel it on a wheelie because you steer with your knees. If you never drop your seat, you'll be fine with the regular binder. But if you lower your seat through your ride, you're probably gonna want the quick release. But man, it's gotta be so tight, it's not as quick to release actually. All right, oh, okay, look, I'm getting toe overlap down here. My toes get so close that they rub the tire. Here we go, see how she wheelies. Oh yeah, that pops up into a wheelie much easier. Oh yeah, that's a chill, relaxed wheelie position. Props to Jones, they've also got short 165 cranks. Dang, that toe rub is no joke. It's almost like having the brakes on. Now the long wheelbase has a little bit slacker head angle to push that wheel out there more, so I don't get toe overlap on that. That's definitely worth mentioning though. Now we're back on the purple one. Man, it doesn't pop up quite as easy, but I feel like it holds its wheelie better. I can wheelie farther on the long wheelbase. All right, now we're on the trail. This is Dusty Betty's first time on the trail on the Jones. Okay, here comes a little bit of steppy tech. All right, we're at our first obstacle. Some limestone, slippery, ledgy tech. Dusty Betty's never ridden one of these, especially on tech. Do you want any tips or do you want to just try it?
I'll take tips.
On a modern mountain bike, you get over the front and worry about not wheeling out. This bike wants you to keep totally straight over the bottom bracket. Don't lean forward. And if anything, try leaning back compared to what you're used to.
Huh, okay.
It's gonna be hard. There you go, nice. They're quite capable and they can go all sorts of places, but it's a totally different thing than any other mountain bike I've ridden. And I've ridden over 100 different hardtails. And it's not just the bars and it's not just the big tires. Oh, I forgot to mention this bike has the Jones C rims, the carbon rims, where the short wheelbase has aluminum rims. Today we're both at 10 PSI. People see these and they think, oh, they must be heavy and slow with those big draggy tires. But I sure don't feel that on the trail. So Dusty Betty wears a size 6 men's shoe. She also gets toe overlap on the small. I don't get that on the long wheelbase right now. Ooh, she's carving it up. Yeah, nice. It's a good way to get to know the bike. Okay, switch. Let's see what you think of the long wheelbase.
All right.
I feel like I'm over the front wheel a little more, not in a bad way per se, but you can feel where the wheels are underneath you. A lot of times people talk about feeling in the bike or on top of the bike. I feel on top of the bike of this. On the long wheelbase, I feel far more in the bike. They're different, but they're more similar to each other than any other bike. So the way I ride, I definitely think a dropper is the way to go. But if you're doing long touring, or even like something like the White Rim Trail, I'd be fine with a rigid seat post. Bike packing, I'd probably pick a rigid seat post. These don't feel like 27.5 tires. They roll like 29ers. Okay, here we go. Next obstacle.
All right, so first we have probably about an 8-inch ledge. Then we've got this nice little, I don't know, that's probably like 3 or 4 inches. Also a little notch in the middle you could ride up and over this.
Which way you going? Can you get this one on the left?
I don't know. I don't know if I can on the Jones, especially. I've done the far...
Oh, you could totally get the notch.
This on my full suspension.
Yeah, you could do that on the Jones. You'll be surprised. Just look how many pedal strikes are all over this rock. Like, just everybody is smashing pedals through here, up and down. So what you have to do is think about where you are in your rotation depending on the gear you're in and if your pedal's gonna strike there or not. And it's technical enough that you've got some roots and some weird turns before it. So getting into it, a little bit tricky. You can't just ride straight at it and have your pedals right where you want them. I can see you fighting, getting forward. Yeah, first try.
Woo!
Nice.
The tires handle this really well compared to when I ride this on my other bikes, which are more like 2.4, 2.5 wide tires. It was just like, yeah, but considering that those ride like 32s, it doesn't feel weird like I thought it would.
Right.
I'm 5'4", I'm not tall. I will say too, it's a little weird with how back swept the bars are. Like, I'm used to getting really far forward to try and stay over the bottom bracket. When my bike is tilted up, I have to get forward. But it is hard when the bars are that back swept. There's only so much you can do, and so, I don't know. It's a little weird. I bet you get used to it, but I'm not quite used to it yet. But it'll be interesting to see what it feels like on the short wheelbase. For some reason, I feel like I'm gonna be fighting it more on the little guy, because I feel more on top of this bike already. I don't know, we'll see. I'm still timing off.
It's still tractoring up it.
Yeah, it totally is. The tires kind of help where I fail. I was able to pedal through that better.
Oh man, you made that look easy.
Yeah, I timed the pedals better that time. That actually did go way better than I thought. I feel like I timed stuff better. I mean, having like big tires, it makes it all so forgiving. So if I'm a little early with a lunge, it's just like, they just kind of marshmallow up stuff.
Ooh, that was kind of a tricky double lift.
The timing is so
Oh,
good.
if I had a dropper, I'd go up and over this. I still think I want to. Okay, so at slower speeds, I can definitely put the tires where I want to on that. And track stand, like really slow stuff, picking it apart slowly. I love that short wheelbase. Let's see how the long wheelbase does. Ooh, that timing's different. I do have the advantage of the dropper here, so I've got it down on this climb. All right, that's a tie. I had fun on both of them. I don't know if one was better. I did a little more muscling the long wheelbase through there, but I think that's part of the advantage of it. You've got a little more leverage because it's not all right under you, where I feel like on the short wheelbase, if I'm like really wrenching on stuff, it kind of moves around under me a little more than I want. They're more similar than dissimilar. It was interesting, the timing on some of those rocks where the front wheel's lifting while the back wheel's lifting. They were different on the different bikes. Oh boy, here we go. Yeah, nice. Little toe overlap there. On the trail, I get far less toe. Dang, she's unstoppable. Far less toe overlap. I will say riding a Jones solo is fun, but riding with another Jones rider, you're both on similar machines and there's a joy to it. I've got other buddies that we've ridden these Jones with together, and it's so fun because you got the same capability, you go about the same speeds, and the laughter is off the charts. This one feels a little more zippy to me, like it just kind of picks up speed a little bit more. But I also feel like at the faster speeds, I'm closer to the limit than on the long wheelbase. I am using the Jones bag on their H-bar. I am so in love with this thing. If you don't pack stuff around it, it'll rattle, but it's so handy having all your stuff right there. I feel like these bikes do equally well, whether you're grinding out a hard gear like single speed style, or if you're sitting and spinning. I think it'd make a fantastic single speed for quite possibly the simplest bike on the planet. I feel like the Jones C rims are a little stiffer, but I have more confidence on them that I'm not gonna flat. They've got a much wider bead profile. Oh, these massive tires are amazing. That was so fun. Oh man, I'm having a blast. Okay, I need to swap Dusty Betty. That was so fun. All right, let's swap. Any thoughts?
It pumps better than you'd think it should.
Yeah. This bike shatters all your preconceived notions. You think you know what it's going to be like, and then it's totally not like that. More than any other bike I've ever ridden, have I never been so wrong. I definitely feel more upright. I feel that the front wheel is tucked under a little more. More toe overlap there. This bike, I feel like I'm going faster on it than I do on the long wheelbase. The long wheelbase is kind of like, oh, come on, we can go faster. And this one's kind of like, whee! I feel like I'm zooming along on this a little faster than I am. Riding rigid on a bike designed for it's so fun. These stand up and sprint well. I think I like the short wheelbase for standing up and sprinting a little better. You kind of ride them like single speeds. You just keep that momentum up and keep the speed up. And then the weight of the bigger tires doesn't really affect that much. They're not much heavier than like a DHR or Assegai. This one's the king of the track stands and the slow speed balance moves. Man, that's great. Yeah, this one at tight switchbacks I like a little better. There's no bike that I can U-turn on a trail better than this. This one feels a little lighter, a little zippier, a little faster accelerating. I feel like I'm making myself work a little harder to keep up with Dusty Betty though. I feel like that one, once it's up to speed, it just kind of wants to keep that speed and truck along, whereas this one's kind of trying to catch up to it. I do like the upright ride position a lot. There's 4 toe overlap 5 on those switchbacks. Oh, this part is so fun on a Jones coming up. I love mechanical disc brakes, and I love these ones, but the reach adjust screw, especially on a rigid, as you bounce, it rotates and tightens. And so as you go, this gets closer and closer and closer to the bar, and then eventually it's locked on. I put Loctite on them, but they still work their way up there. So if you notice during the ride, this bar's getting closer and this one's getting farther, we'll need to adjust those.
Okay.
But the power's fine for these. Oh, I heard some toe overlap. There's something about the upright, open riding feel that makes you soak in your surroundings more. You naturally look farther ahead than when you're down in a hunched over modern racing position. The bike definitely feels right under your feet on this. It kind of feels like skiing. That's kind of part of the being on the bike feel, or on your feet feel is probably a better way to think of it. I don't feel on the bike until I compare it to the long wheelbase, which just feels even more in the bike. One thing about not having a dropper is this forces you to kind of keep your weight where the bike was designed to be. Because the seat's kind of right there, you can't really, here we go. You can't really get too far forward because you feel that the seat's in the wrong spot. Woo! Oh man. Yeah, it does not feel like a twitchy, steep head angle bike like the numbers look on paper. it just works with this Geo. A lot of it's how that fork is raked out a little bit, pushing the front wheel out there a little bit.
The two bikes, they carry momentum differently. The little guy just has a lot of pep, gets going immediately, and you'll be like, if it's flat, you know, you're like pedal, pedal, pump, whoo, pedal, 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 pump. You know, this one, it's like if you're on flat, it's like you give it 2 good hard cranks. It takes a little input, like 2 good hard cranks, and then it's just like momentum.
It holds its speed.
It does,
so
yeah.
well.
Once you get it there, just give it those couple hard cranks. It just holds that speed surprisingly well. It does feel like it could be rotational weight, just the way that the momentum feels.
I think if you're riding under 5 miles an hour, this one is going to feel slower and draggier and like more input needed. But like you said, once you're up to 10 miles an hour to keep it going, I feel like that takes far less input than the short wheelbase. It's like more efficient to just keep it at that speed.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, may depend on what kind of riding you're doing.
At slow speeds like this, I do need to use more input to stay balanced. On that short wheelbase, it's telepathic at like track stands and just 0 mile an hour stuff. The slower you go, the more that short wheelbase comes alive. I feel like if you like adrenaline in the form of speed, you'll probably want the long wheelbase. If you like adrenaline in the form of goofing around and being a goober on the bike, probably the short wheelbase. All right, we're at the switchback test.
Little buzz on the toe. I don't know, I do feel like the long wheelbase, even climbing, it does, like once you give it those 2 hard cranks, it just carries the momentum. Maybe the wheels also being in the bike feels really good.
So if you were picking a bike just for that switchback and you rode 1 million of those switchbacks in one day, which one would you choose?
I probably would choose this, yeah.
Now, bunny hops, I like the short rear end of this, but the short front sketches me out just a little. I feel like I'm gonna jump forward over the front a little. I really feel like this bike kind of falls apart and discourages you when you shift your weight forward. It kind of just wants it here all the time. I feel more comfortable jumping on this one. I feel like the wheels are a little more spread out. That one has more razor sharp handling with the steeper head tube. You can steer with the bars a little more on that short wheelbase. She's still catching air. Woo! But you can see that seat kind of keeps her hips in that spot where the Jones want them. And then the front and back balance is just perfect.
Probably if I was doing more of this, I probably would go for the shorter wheelbase because I mean, that one pumped fine, but this one was just, it just felt snappier. Yeah, that was really fun on those bikes. I never would have thought like to do tires that fat on a pump track, but it's pretty cool.
I feel like my hands are more in my pockets in the short wheelbase. I feel like the effective top tube is ever so shorter. All right, we're on the long wheelbase. This is Area 51. It's a black diamond. There we go. Oh boy. That was sketchy. Oh man, I cleared that. I did not expect that. Not my first choice for these little rock hip jumps, but it's doing it and I'm smiling. Even this long wheelbase, you can get the front wheel off the ground when needed. Okay, that's fun.
Real party,
What's
dude.
up? So nice to meet you.
Yes, sir.
Where are you guys from?
West Virginia, around Fairmont, West Virginia.
Right on. Kind of scared. Oh, I don't think I'm gonna hit that. I'm gonna hit it. I'm just gonna hit it slower. A little scared. Let's try that again with a little more confidence. A little slower that time than on the other bike. So this bike is actually a little poppier and more playful. It's just weird seeing your tire so close to you. I do wish I had a dropper at the moment. I feel more planted on the other one. And this one's more poppy for sure. I feel more confident on the big one. But man, this is fun at slower speeds like this. This one does turn at the bars more. The long wheelbase wants to be leaned. This one is fine staying upright and turning at the bars in like an old school way. Both of those were really fun. I think the short wheelbase was a little bit more fun in there at the speed I was going. It's a little bit easier to dart around stuff and maneuver, and the jumping felt a little more natural. I'm still getting a little bit of toe overlap, which is really nerve-wracking. But man, these things are so much fun. There are other bikes that would be far better on that trail, but the fact that I can still have fun on it on this says a lot about these little things. There's one more feature I've been dying to try on these. It's a long downhill slab. Let's go check it out. I've ridden over 100 modern hardtails and most of the current full suspensions on the market right now. My main business is consulting with people and helping them pick the perfect bike for their riding style and budget. I love helping people do that. That's a service that I charge for because it takes a lot of time and expertise. But I'd love to help you avoid making a costly mistake getting the wrong bike. So if you're interested in that, head on over to Patreon where I do that. And I also sell a mountain bike geometry course. And anyone who says a Jones is basically the same geometry as a bike from the 90s needs to take that course. If you're just looking at head angle, maybe. But if you're just looking at head angle, you really don't understand geometry. And you owe it to yourself to become educated on that so you can understand what you're feeling when you ride bikes and when you're comparing them online. This is way scarier than it looks on camera. Oh, and adding toe overlap does not help. Oh, I can't. That was a little scary. I could not lock up the front anymore. I had pulled it all the way to the bars. That's the first time these brakes have ever felt slightly underpowered. All right, let's try the long wheelbase. Oh yeah, this is better. Not much though. Oh, I also had these pulled to the bars. I've hit that before on this bike, but that's the first time the brakes felt like they had me. Okay, one quick thing. Really tight turns like this, U-turns, by far the short wheelbase up or down excels at those. It looks so mellow on the GoPro, but that's pretty steep and rowdy feeling when you're on it. I feel like that's about the limit of where I'd want to take this. But that's pretty amazing that a rigid hardtail can ride down that with a smile on my face and not sheer terror. Thank you so much for helping me with that.
That was fun.
So this year we've got a goal to hit 100,000 subscribers. It would really help us reach that goal by clicking the subscribe button. If you found this content enjoyable and interesting, this has been super enjoyable and interesting for me to experiment. This, by the way, this is not sponsored, this is not paid for by Jones. This is just our independent thoughts about these bikes. This was your first Jones ride.
It's the best rigid experience that I've had. The frames just ride a little more compliant. I'm expecting sometimes when we were going down some of the square chunky stuff, I was expecting to feel that like pain in my molars and my joints, but rides really nicely. It's got big tires. It really helps. The fork is pitched out a little bit differently, and so you don't like get stuck on things. And so that felt really good. So I was just amazed how versatile it really was. I was like, okay, I get it. I can actually see riding trail on this bike.
Pretend you got to keep one. Which one are you keeping?
Oh, that is hard to say. For everyday trail riding, probably the long wheelbase. I just like the way that it carries momentum, getting up to speed. I like to do a lot of long rides, but I don't know if I was doing a lot more like short, punchy rides. I really want to pick my way through some kind of like rocky and obstacle-y stuff and ride the skills park, that's when the short travel was really fun. So I don't know, you kind of got me.
I agree. I like the long wheelbase more. It's the one I grab when I want to go for a ride. I think it's because usually when I want to enjoy a ride and just unwind and soak in nature, I'm grabbing the Jones and not one of my shreddy bikes. And so I'm not wanting a shreddy experience. And so I actually like the way the long wheelbase just kind of erases itself and just kind of blends in. I also get in that headspace like I do on single speeds, where you can just like lock into a 2 or 3 mile an hour range, like, I don't know, 12 to 16 miles an hour, and you just stay in there and maintain that the whole way, and that's really fun. And I feel like the long wheelbase does that a little better than the short wheelbase. The short wheelbase is still not as playful as my Stanton Sedona or my Binary Maniac or a Hanzo ESD. It's playful for the Jones experience. The Jones riding experience is so different. And these two have far more overlap than differences. There are 3 things that really, I think, need to change about these bikes. Number 1, on the size small, is the toe overlap. That front wheel is just too close to you, and I probably buzzed my toe 15, 20 times.
I buzzed my toe quite a few times too, on switchbacks up and down.
And there were 1 or 2 where it like stopped me like a brake. That reminds me of the early 29er days when we got a lot of toe overlap. So I'd like to see that even on the short wheelbase, the front pushed out just a little bit more. And I have a theory that people like slack bikes not for the steering response, but for the stability that it gives you to have the front wheel further ahead of you. So I think there's some stuff to explore there as well. I've got a lot of geometry theory ideas that I want to explore on future experimental bikes. Another thing that needs to change on the short wheelbase especially is the seat tube. It curves like 4 inches in. So you really only have about 3 inches of usable seat height, which for small riders, you need to be able to get that seat all the way out of the way, all the way down, to give them the confidence that they need on riding more technical stuff. And so that bend should come later. And then the third thing on both of them, I think that 27.2 seat tube size, I know people talk about how it gives you a compliant ride, and perhaps, but your droppers are sure limited with that. And you don't need as long of a dropper on this as maybe something else, because I tend to not just shred on these. But if I had a 31.6 or even a 30.9 seat tube diameter, I could run a whole bunch of different droppers that have more than 125 mil drop. It's been really fun to test these back to back. Huge thanks to Dusty Betty. Thanks to Jones for sending these in so we could get experimental and see what they're like. Which one are you gravitating towards? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everybody. There's a party in the mountains and you're invited.